It felt like the world tilted on its axis a few weeks back. Found out my wife Emily wasn't just stepping out, she was knocked up by some other guy. The betrayal hit like a punch to the gut, but what came after? Pure insanity. The kids, totally innocent in all this mess, found a stray bunny in Central Park. They were over the moon, wanted to keep it, name it Snowflake, build it a little cardboard mansion in the living room. We're already bursting at the seams with pets in our Upper West Side apartment, so I put my foot down. Responsible thing, I said. Release it back into the park where it belongs, give it a fighting chance. I told Emily, take it to that quieter spot near the conservatory garden, plenty of bushes, safe zone. Did she listen? Of course not. While I was killing myself at the office downtown, she lets the bunny loose right in the middle of our building's courtyard, concrete jungle, Pigeon City, and Hawk Central. You already know how this ends. Hawk dives out of nowhere, talons extended, snatches the poor thing in midair. My kids. They saw everything from the window. Pure joy turned to absolute horror in a heartbeat. Heard the bunny squeal. They came screaming into the apartment, tears streaming down their faces, little bodies shaking. I was beyond livid. Not just about the bunny, but what it symbolized. It wasn't just a screw-up. It was another blatant act of defiance. Another time she disregarded my judgment. Disregarded what was best for our kids' feelings. And did she own up to it? Apologize? Not a chance. It's just a rabbit, she says, like it's a discarded tissue. They'll get over it. Over it? My kids were traumatized. They barricaded themselves in their rooms, wouldn't speak to her, wouldn't even look at her. Bunny killer, they hissed every time she tried to get close. I tried to play mediator, told them to forgive their mom, but honestly, my blood was boiling right along with theirs. When I finally confronted Emily, she actually expected me to take her side. Spouses support each other, she declared, like it was some kind of unbreakable vow. Support her, after this, after everything. We went at it, voices rising, and I just unloaded. Every instant she'd undermined me, every time she'd put her own selfish desires ahead of everyone else. Instead of facing the music, she crumbled, fake tears, ran to the bedroom, slammed the door, locked me out. The tension in that apartment was thick enough to choke on. The bunny incident felt like a grim omen, a taste of something much darker to come. For a week, it was the silent treatment. I tried to discipline the kids when they kept calling her names, trying desperately to restore some semblance of peace, but it was useless. Finally, she mumbled some half-hearted apology about the bunny, said she maybe should have listened, but she only fought back, because she hates being wrong. I swallowed my pride, said okay, apology barely accepted, but let's get some marriage counseling, fix this broken mess. She scoffed. Our marriage is fine, she insisted, acting like nothing was amiss, like we were living in some sitcom fantasy. Weeks crawled by. This eerie calm settled over us, but it was a total sham. I could feel it in my bones. Then, my eldest daughter, Chloe, came to me, looking like she'd seen a ghost. She hesitated, fidgeted, then whispered this secret, something she'd been carrying, terrified to speak. For months, Emily had been sneaking another man into our apartment while I was at work. Introduced him to Chloe and her brother Liam as her special friend. Bought their silence with toys, candy, promised trips to FAO Schwartz, emotional blackmail, the whole manipulative playbook. Chloe, way too perceptive for her age, knew deep down something was terribly wrong. Disbelief slammed into me like a runaway subway train. But then pieces started clicking into place. Emily's been so irritable lately, especially with the kids. Mood swings like a roller coaster, constantly defensive, this simmering tension always in the air. I remembered showing her that Reddit thread about cheating spouses, trying to open a dialogue, maybe spark some honesty. She'd blown up, attacked my character, dredged up ancient history, stuff I'd long since buried, crying so loudly the neighbors probably thought someone was being murdered. Looking back, it wasn't anger. It was pure, unadulterated guilt screaming to get out. Desperate for the truth, I installed hidden cameras, discreetly placed throughout the apartment, hanging onto a thread of hope that I was wrong, praying for some kind of rational explanation. Within a week, my worst nightmares materialized in high-definition video, confirmed my deepest, darkest fears. The guy? David, a former colleague of Emily's, some young hotshot she'd mentored back when she had a career before becoming a stay-at-home mom. I confided in my sister Olivia, showed her the damning footage. She wasn't even surprised. Said she'd had a bad feeling about Emily for a while. Mentioned seeing her out, looking way too cozy with some guy who wasn't me, but nothing concrete, just a gut feeling. To get irrefutable proof, I slapped a GPS tracker on Emily's car. Olivia and her husband Ben agreed to tail her on her next girls' night out. That night, she didn't head to her usual wine bar downtown. Drove way out of the city, across the bridge, met David in some dive bar in Jersey. Olivia and Ben watched from across the street, recording everything with Olivia's phone. David's hand all over her stomach, laughing, whispering in her ear, clearly more than just friends. That was it. The smoking gun. Not just cheating, pregnant with his baby. The betrayal, the web of lies, the complete disregard for our family. It all came crashing down, a tidal wave of disgust and rage. This wasn't just a one-time slip-up. It was a pattern of deception, years of neglect, selfishness masquerading as motherhood. And this was only the prelude to the real storm. Seeing that video, the way David touched her belly, her recent mood swings, the pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. David's baby. Olivia and Ben had to physically restrain me. I was a complete wreck, pacing like a caged animal ready to explode. My first instinct was to numb the pain with a bottle of scotch. But Olivia, always the voice of reason, talked me down. Took a leave of absence from work. Told Emily it was a sudden business trip to Chicago. Strangely, she seemed thrilled, practically giddy about me leaving town. This whole situation was twisting my perception of reality. Who was this woman I'd married? Had I been living a lie for 15 years? Was she always this cold, this calculating? Felt like some alien pod person had replaced the Emily I thought I knew. To maintain some semblance of control, the cameras stayed on, recording every corner of the apartment. Olivia and Ben, saints that they are, took the kids for a few days. Promised them a trip to the Museum of Natural History, anything to get them away from the toxic atmosphere. Emily, sensing an opportunity, pounced. Called David just hours after I supposedly left for Chicago. He was at our apartment that very night. I won't get into the graphic details, you can fill in the blanks. But on top of the physical betrayal, they were mocking me, laughing at me the whole time, talking about their baby, strategizing how to hide it until she started showing, already 3 months along, no way in hell to pass it off as mine, especially since David was African American. Emily just brushed aside David's concerns, casually admitting this wasn't even her first rodeo. Slept with some Wall Street shark when she was 29, she confessed. Said she was tired of playing Stepford wife, bored with a predictable vanilla guy like me. Spit out that if it weren't for my Wall Street salary, she would have bolted years ago. David, surprisingly, actually asked about Chloe and Liam. He can have them, Emily sneered. Didn't want them. They were too attached to him anyway. Couldn't wait for her real baby to arrive. Disgust, pure revulsion, washed over me, watching this unfold on my laptop screen in this soulless motel room near Newark Airport. I nearly hurled the laptop across the room, wanted to smash it to pieces, but somehow I contained myself. Grabbed a 6-pack from the mini fridge, ordered greasy diner food, tried to lose myself in some mindless cable movie, spent the rest of the night staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of our marriage in my head, trying to find the cracks, the warning signs I'd missed. Thought I knew Emily better than I knew myself. Loved her with everything I had. Would have walked through fire for her. This revelation ripped away the foundation of my entire life. Made me realize some people are just inherently broken. You never truly see their darkness until it's too late, until they reveal their true monstrous selves. That night, staring into the abyss of my shattered life, I made a decision. Going scorched earth. Divorce. Normally, I'm a peacemaker, a calm, rational guy. Avoid conflict like the plague. But push me to the edge? Unleash the beast. I can become someone's worst nightmare. Next morning, I marched into a high-powered divorce law firm in Midtown, asked for their most ruthless attorney, the one who ate sharks for breakfast. New York is an adultery state. Emily was legally screwed the moment I had her affair on tape. The lawyer, Ms. Stern, a sharp-tongued woman who looked like she could win a war with a stapler, was initially wary, wanted to know why I was in such a hurry. I laid it all out. The affair, the pregnancy, the bunny, the lies, the video evidence. Showed her snippets of the footage on my phone. Her expression shifted. A slow, predatory grin spread across her face. "Consider it done," she said, her voice dripping with relish. "This is the kind of case divorce lawyers live for." Served Emily with divorce papers a few weeks later. Strategically timed it for a weekday, kids at school, me working remotely. A city marshal, a woman built like a linebacker, delivered the envelope right into Emily's manicured hands. Our hidden cameras captured the whole scene in stark, unflinching detail. She looked genuinely terrified as she ripped open the envelope, scanned the contents. Then her carefully constructed facade crumbled completely. She stormed into my home office, a tornado of rage in designer yoga pants, screaming accusations, demanding answers. But I was ice. Calm, detached, completely checked out of that farce of a marriage. Emily wanted to argue, to negotiate, to manipulate. I simply stated in a voice as cold as the East River in January that I'd made my decision, and I wanted her out of my apartment, out of my life. Pointed out, factually, that I was the only one who had ever paid rent, the only name on the lease. She shrieked back, insisting it was her home too, threatened to fabricate stories of abuse, claim I was violent, get me fired from my job. I responded calmly, almost conversationally. Told her to go right ahead, spin whatever lies she wanted, wouldn't change a thing. Reminded her with a chilling lack of emotion that she'd been plotting to screw me over since she got pregnant with David's baby anyway. Her eyes widened, a flicker of fear replacing the rage. How much do you know?" she stammered. "Enough," I said, my voice flat, devoid of feeling. Repeated my demand. She needed to leave now. She adamantly refused, clinging to some delusion that she had a right to stay, that it was as much her home as mine. Then, in a move that was both predictable and pathetic, she retreated to the bedroom, slammed and locked the door. I watched on the bedroom camera feed as she dissolved into a theatrical meltdown, sobbing, hyperventilating. Then, the pièce de résistance, she pulled out her phone and dialed 911, acted like she was in a full-blown panic attack. But there was this subtle, almost imperceptible smirk playing on her lips as she spoke to the operator. Oscar-worthy performance, truly. I would have almost believed it if I hadn't already seen the monster lurking beneath the surface, if I hadn't known the depths of her deceit. I decided to wait for the cops, front door wide open, a picture of calm, wronged husband. Welcome them in when they arrived, 2 uniformed officers, looking braced for a domestic brawl. They found the apartment eerily quiet, immaculate, no signs of any physical altercation. Emily burst out of the bedroom, a whirlwind of fake hysteria, grabbed the nearest officer's vest, sobbing dramatically, accusing me of being a maniac, a violent monster. I calmly requested if one of the other officers would be willing to review some video evidence of what was truly going on. Surprisingly, the younger officer nodded, intrigued, clearly sensing something wasn't adding up. Emily, completely unaware of the cameras, froze, her carefully constructed performance faltering for the first time. I pulled up the laptop, showed the officer the footage from the living room, Emily's screaming accusations, her threats to ruin my life. Then I fast-forwarded to the bedroom feed, Emily's staged panic attack, the calculated phone call to 911, the barely concealed smirk, multiple camera angles, irrefutable proof. Even though Emily was hysterically claiming I'd assaulted her, there wasn't a scratch on her, and the camera footage painted a picture of a woman orchestrating a manipulative charade. I handed the officer a thumb drive containing all the video files, everything they needed to see the truth, to see that Emily had called them under false pretenses, attempting to weaponize the police against me. Emily, even confronted with the damning evidence, doubled down on her fabricated abuse claims, even tried to argue that the recordings were illegal, inadmissible. I calmly pointed out that the recordings were perfectly legal, security cameras inside my own home, not in any public space, no expectation of privacy for her performance. Emily, cornered, desperate, turned to the police, pleaded with them to do something, and they did. They cuffed her. The color drained from her face, replaced by a mask of pure, unadulterated terror. Then the sobs started, truly uncontrollable this time. It was a surreal, deeply unsettling moment. This was the woman I'd built a life with, the woman I'd believed was intelligent, wonderful, my soulmate. Turns out, I couldn't have been more wrong. As the police led her out of the apartment, Emily screamed that they couldn't do this to her. But she didn't resist physically, probably smart enough to avoid adding resisting arrest to her rapidly growing list of charges. The second they were gone, I went into damage control mode, canceled all her credit cards, shut down access to the joint bank account, leaving her to fend for herself, to scrape together bail money from her own secret stash, which I knew she had, years of housewife savings. When she inevitably returned for her car, the BMW I'd bought her but thankfully titled in my name, I'd packed a few suitcases with clothes, toiletries, some of her personal effects, left the car key on the driver's seat. Crystal clear message: "You're done here. Stay away." Emily's parents, bless their hearts, showed up at my door the day after she bailed herself out. Initially, they only had Emily's twisted version of events, the same victim narrative she'd tried to sell to the police. Her father, Robert, a retired NYPD detective, was especially confrontational, ready to read me the riot act. But I calmly asked him, point blank, if he knew anything about Emily's affair, about her pregnancy. He looked genuinely shocked, confused, gave me the opening I needed to explain, pulled out the laptop, one last time, showed my in-laws the raw, unedited video footage. As the truth unfolded on the screen, their expressions shifted from disbelief to horror to utter disgust. When the video ended, they were speechless for a long moment. Then her mother, Susan, started to cry, softly at first, then uncontrollably. They said they couldn't comprehend that this person, this manipulative, deceitful woman, was their daughter. Apologized profusely, sincerely, for Emily's behavior, promised to support me and the kids in any way they could. They even called Emily right there, on speakerphone, in front of me, confronted her with her lies, her betrayal. When Emily tried to double down, to spin more fabrications, her parents cut her off, told her they'd seen the recordings, they knew everything, they were on my side, made it brutally clear they wanted her out of their lives, effective immediately. Emily tried to backpedal, to beg for forgiveness, but her parents were unyielding, their voices cold and final. They told her they hadn't raised her to be a selfish, adulterous liar, to frame her own husband, to abandon her children, disowned her right there and then over the phone, hung up before Emily could even sputter a response. She tried calling them back relentlessly, but they ignored every call, every text. When they returned to their Long Island home, they found Emily had not only packed her things, but had also trashed their house in a final act of spiteful rage, shattered family photos, ripped curtains, spray-painted obscenities on the walls. Susan, already heartbroken, was devastated. Despite everything, I still consider Robert and Susan my in-laws. They visit the kids regularly, bring them gifts, offer unwavering support. Emily, on the other hand, became a ghost, a non-person, erased from our lives. Later, Emily returned to the apartment, accompanied by David, to collect her remaining belongings. David wouldn't even step foot inside the building, waited nervously in the lobby. Emily, face like stone, refused to speak a single word to me while she gathered her things, fully aware of the omnipresent security cameras, knowing any further drama, any more outbursts, would only further condemn her in court. I wasn't alone during this final tense encounter. Olivia and Ben were there, silent sentinels, keeping a watchful eye on Emily. Ben discreetly observing David downstairs. Emily continued packing, ignoring the kids completely even when Chloe and Liam arrived home from school, their faces etched with confusion and sadness. She didn't acknowledge them, didn't even glance in their direction, not even when Liam, my youngest, started to cry softly, reaching out for her. Before finally leaving, she grabbed a framed photo of us from our wedding, a happy, smiling image from a lifetime ago, hurled it against the wall, shattering the glass, shards flying everywhere. I believe she was expecting some reaction from me, some outburst of anger, judging by the way she stared at me, waiting, almost daring me to engage. But I remained silent, impassive, watching her with the same cold detachment I'd felt throughout the divorce proceedings. She gathered her last bags, turned, and walked out the door, disappearing from our lives as abruptly and completely as she had shattered our family. Once she was gone, the silence in the apartment was deafening, heavy with the weight of what had transpired. I had to call my mother, ask her to come stay with me for a while. I was drowning in grief, overwhelmed by the responsibility of single parenthood, unable to focus on work, daycare arrangements a logistical nightmare. In the midst of the chaos, amidst the swirling emotions, I made a pragmatic decision. Ordered DNA tests for Chloe and Liam just to be absolutely certain, even though deep down I knew they were mine. Too many whispered doubts, too many well-meaning but intrusive suggestions from friends and family had planted seeds of uncertainty. I needed definitive proof for my own peace of mind. Arranged for discreet home DNA kits, the results arrived a few days later. Both Chloe and Liam, unequivocally, were my biological children. Relief washed over me, a wave of pure, unadulterated gratitude. I also got tested for STIs, another necessary precaution in this whole sordid mess. Clean bill of health, thankfully. About a week later, Emily, brazen as ever, showed up at my door again. Proposed a clean divorce, she called it, meaning she would agree to a quiet, amicable split if I did as well, meaning if I agreed to give her half of everything. I laughed in her face, slammed the door shut. There was some tense back and forth through Ms. Stern, my lawyer, Emily suddenly represented by some slick, expensive shark from a rival firm. Emily had finally realized that New York law was not on her side, that being the adulterer in an adultery state was a significant disadvantage. We had met, gotten engaged, married, built our entire lives in New York. No legal loopholes for her to exploit. Her only hope was to bully me into a settlement, to bleed me dry through legal fees and protracted court battles. I refused to budge, told Ms. Stern to go for the jugular, to make Emily pay for every lie, every betrayal, every ounce of pain she had inflicted. I didn't see Emily again until we faced each other in divorce court a few months later. She was visibly pregnant now, the baby bump undeniable, radiating a smug, self-satisfied air completely devoid of remorse. David was nowhere to be seen, conveniently vanished from the picture. I fully expected Emily to lie through her teeth to the judge, to try and paint herself as the victim, to twist the narrative to her advantage. And she did, attempted a few pathetic transparent fabrications. But I was armed with an arsenal of video evidence, every lie, every manipulation, every act of deceit documented in crystal-clear digital format. She didn't stand a chance. Instead, she resorted to delaying tactics, dragging out the proceedings, refusing to cooperate, making outrageous demands. She wanted the lion's share of my savings, demanded I buy out her half of the apartment, even though she'd never contributed a single penny to the rent. I, in turn, pushed for full custody of Chloe and Liam, to legally remove her name from the lease, presented the video evidence of her callous indifference towards our children, her stated desire to abandon them. Emily stalled, shifted her demands constantly, a desperate flailing attempt to gain any leverage. But Judge Thompson, a no-nonsense woman with a reputation for cutting through legal BS, wasn't having it. Given the overwhelming evidence of Emily's adultery, her false accusations, her blatant disregard for her children, and the unforgiving laws of New York State, her case crumbled spectacularly. In the end, she lost everything. No custody of Chloe and Liam, walked away with nothing but the clothes on her back and a hefty legal bill. The apartment, solely in my name, remained mine. The BMW, considered marital property, was signed over to her as part of the settlement, a small concession in the grand scheme of things. She received a relatively modest financial payout, $660,000, calculated based on the duration of our marriage and her demonstrated financial needs, a fraction of what she had hoped for. Crucially, I was granted sole legal and physical custody of my children. Emily, astonishingly, willingly relinquished all rights, didn't even pursue visitation, confirming her own recorded words that she simply didn't want them anymore. The judge cited the video evidence of her neglect and indifference as a significant factor in her decision. And, in a final, ironic twist of fate, Emily's attempt to falsely accuse me of domestic violence backfired spectacularly. The NYPD in New York City takes false accusations very seriously. Her calculated lie, her blatant attempt to manipulate the system, resulted in her arrest for filing a false police report, a charge that would hang over her head long after the divorce dust settled. Moving forward, the divorce, though a brutal, emotionally draining process, marked the end of a chapter of lies and deceit, and the beginning of a new, uncertain, but ultimately hopeful future. As time passed, the raw pain dulled, replaced by a quiet resolve. I poured my energy into rebuilding our lives, creating a stable, loving environment for Chloe and Liam. Having full custody allowed me to forge an even deeper bond with them, to be fully present in their lives, to heal together. We filled our days with laughter, adventures in Central Park, weekend trips to Coney Island, creating new, cherished memories to replace the toxic ones of the past. With the unwavering support of Olivia, Ben, and my parents, we built a close-knit, supportive family network, stronger than ever before. I also dedicated time to myself, to personal growth, to rediscovering passions I'd neglected for years. Took photography classes at the 92nd Street Y, started running in Riverside Park, even dusted off my old guitar and started playing again. This journey of self-discovery not only boosted my confidence, but also unexpectedly led me to someone truly remarkable. In a completely unforeseen twist of fate, I crossed paths with Sarah, a fellow parent at Chloe's school, a woman who shared my values, my sense of humor, and a deep respect for family. We connected instantly, fell in love, and together we blended our lives, creating a warm, loving, and genuinely happy home for my children. Sarah embraced Chloe and Liam as her own, becoming an integral part of our family, a source of unwavering love and support. Over time, Emily's actions, her betrayal, her cruelty, faded into a distant, unpleasant memory. Forgiveness, not for Emily, but for myself, became an essential part of the healing process. I wished her well in some abstract, detached way, hoped she would eventually find some semblance of happiness, some measure of fulfillment in her new self-chosen life. As the years went by, Chloe and Liam thrived in their new family structure, surrounded by love, security, and genuine happiness. We celebrated milestones, navigated challenges together, learned valuable life lessons, becoming stronger and more resilient with each passing year. Despite the initial darkness, the devastating betrayal, our journey led us to a place of unexpected joy, of profound love, of contentment that I never thought possible. Proof that even after the most violent storms, a bright, vibrant rainbow can emerge, painting the sky with hope and promise on the other side. And to you, dear listener, if you've stayed with me this far, thank you for listening, for sharing this journey. If you found any resonance in this story, please consider subscribing to our channel. Your support helps us continue to share these stories, to connect, to remind each other that even in the darkest of times, there is always the possibility of light, of healing, of a new beginning.